I'm Catherine Austin, and welcome to Living Karma Yoga. This is a show where we celebrate all that the yoga world has to offer, from postures to music, mantra, meditation, travel, cooking, and so much more. Yoga for 1 hour just isn't enough in today's busy world, so we're going to help you take your yoga off the mat and into your life. And I hope you find here many tools to help you live the life you deserve, and a life where you can literally vibrate love, joy, happiness, and prosperity and abundance in all forms. So thank you for joining us today, and I'm really excited because I'm in my home, which is our Karma Yoga studio here at Maple and Lahser Road. And I have with us today a special guest, Dr. Joel Kahn, and he's not only a friend but also a colleague in the area. Dr. Joel Kahn is a cardiologist who treats and prevents heart disease, known as America's holistic heart doc. Dr. Kahn has offices in Southfield, Madison Heights, and Rochester Hills. He is the author of the Holistic Heart Book, a preventative cardiologist's guide to halt heart disease now, and it really just came out, so I'm really excited to have him here. Thank you for joining us.
Big honor for me. Thank you.
It's nice to have you in the studio in this form versus always in yoga class.
Yes, we've had some fun here the last few months together, but thank you very much.
So I'm interested in your journey because I don't know your whole backstory, and you know, when I even found yoga, and I don't know what your story is yet, but I found yoga in my mid-30s, so it wasn't exactly super young, but we know that everything is on divine time, and it was exactly when I was supposed to. And it came to me actually in a time of my life that I really needed some deep healing. So that's when it was the appropriate time to show up. So let's start with that, kind of like, how did you find yoga, or how did it find you? Usually.
I mean, it found me through the neighborhood and through a marriage and through a lot of friends. And about the same time, University of Michigan Medical School, was already busy in practice here locally, have always managed to fight a battle to get some fitness and some workout in, and generally that was swimming or running or something. But I had a wife that started going, Karen, that started going to yoga locally about 20 years ago. So also for me, about 17 years ago, I just finally agreed, because I mean, it's still not enough male participants in yoga around town, but it was much less back then. And finally agreed some Sunday morning to drag a mat and see what was going on, and really had no exposure. I think, and that's true of so many of us. I just had not been around many practitioners and people, but I had seen how much my wife was enjoying it, and her whole group of friends, and a few others that I had known. And so I went one Sunday, and one Sunday became pretty regular Sundays. And you know, I'm athletic, but I'm also not a gymnast. So I was also a little cautious with my yoga, and you know, avoided injury. Just found it was just a great complement to everything else I was doing. I had probably, as you know, kind of taken food and some other areas of a holistic approach to life a little further down the road. So yoga kind of took its own time and came slowly. But have stuck with it and have enjoyed it tremendously. And then, to be very fair and honest, along came my introduction to Karma Yoga just this past summer through a dear mutual friend, Cassie. And that has just added such an element to bring my practice into Karma, and particularly your amazing Kundalini classes. So I feel very much at home here, and thank you, and grateful. So at this point, though, I've made yoga much more both a regular practice and an important part of my own life, but also an important part of my care for patients, because it is really, yoga is a tool in the medical care of patients, both prevention and treatment, and it's just exciting to see how well they do with it.
Well, let's talk about that. For instance, how long were you just coming into the yoga and then starting to feel that you could transition that into a little bit of your own practice into Western medicine? When did that kind of happen? Like, how long were you on the mat? And where were you at in your yoga practice at that time?
Really quite a while, to be honest. I mean, if you go back to 1990, one of the things that was very important in my own career was the work of Dr. Dean Ornish, cardiologist in California, and his early work, which was just, and remains just absolutely fundamental in how you can prevent and reverse heart disease through lifestyle. But part of his program from the beginning, and a part not often talked about, was an hour a day of either meditation or yoga There were yoga practitioners and trainers. He himself had quite a strong yoga training in India. And I had read his work, but it kind of got lost, at least to me, but I think to many of us. Dr. Dean Ornish was a diet heart reversal doctor,
Right.
but what happened to the the mind-body yoga heart doctor reversal program? And I kept going back and rereading, but really it's probably been about the last 3-4 years that I've been regularly recommending to people various aspects of how to get involved in yoga, and probably in all of them, breathing practices. Stress is so much an important part of being a heart patient. It's a stressful thing for the more serious ones, and they have just really learned to use breathing and improve the quality of life and improve their ability to deal with stress. So I'm kind of still coming of age. You mentioned a journey, and mine is very much in midstream. There's a lot going on, I think, still to come. But there's only a few examples of really immersed yoga and medicine in the Detroit area, and they're good ones, and I'm participating in those. But we'll develop our own, and we'll do one right here at Karma.
I like that. So do you spend the first several years or first 10 years of your practice really just in asana or the postures? And then did you start to understand more about the pranayamas or the breath exercises?
Yes, and that came a little later.
Right.
There was the medical understanding of breath. And really my course, like many of us, is many pieces to it, and it's a little bit, it wasn't predestined, or maybe it was predestined, but it wasn't planned. I frankly got involved a bit with Kids Kicking Cancer and watched the power of breathing in healing and the power of breathing in stress reduction in young kids, a local charity that I'm on the board of and just find amazing. And I just literally saw children with some of the worst medical illnesses be able to manage and handle their situation until they healed, or sometimes until they died, using breath work. And then I started bringing that into the cath lab, actually. Patients are uncomfortable. Patients go through some needles and other things, and I would actually stop and teach them for just a couple of minutes, just as I had seen done. It doesn't take an hour to teach somebody, obviously, to breathe and focus and relax. Just a couple of minutes, and I just saw how quickly that worked in my own practice. So so the breath work was probably the first thing and the easiest thing to bring in. I've actually sort of farmed out, referred people for the asanas, chair yoga for some of these older people that really aren't, are limited in what they can do, but they're still enjoying the whole gamut of, adding to their life. I think a lot of it too is just a social support. Get somebody into a healthy back or a chair-based yoga that an older person, and they just like having a place to go and supportive people and a loving environment like this is.
Or our general karma classes, which are for maybe someone aging or recovering from illness or injury, they are the most fun because they become a real community. They even have potluck, like holiday dinners together, and they look out for each other. Especially as some of them are snowbirds, and they go away and they're like, where have you been? But they come back. It's a really nice community.
And I think all of us, the power of social connection in medicine and health and wellness is becoming more realized than I think we talked about in the past. Some of the success of Dr. Ornish's program and others were small group sessions and friendships. The very successful church-based program in California called the Daniel Plan was all built around small group friendships. And I always know that's one of the reasons I kept coming back and continuing to come back to this studio and others is, the friendships and participation. And amongst those that have, more serious medical problems, there's no doubt having somebody ask about you when you've been gone is it's actually healing. It's
wonderful. Call it the power of the collective.
Yes.
Because we know that famous line, when two or more are gathered, it's just more healing happens, more amplification of the energy field and what we're doing in this room. A lot of people don't understand that what's going on in the yoga room, but they do because they leave feeling better. They've shifted their energy somehow. Okay, so you started in the asana like many Westerners do, and I did too, and then a little more knowledge in the pranayama or the breath. When did meditation start to interest you in your own practice first?
Pretty recent, about 2 years ago, and was introduced, actually, Dave Lazinski, so that was pretty recent. And that, again, was through dear friend Cassie. So was aware of it, knew nobody, frankly, in my sphere that I was aware of that was regularly a meditator. It's not part of the medical world generally, which is a real unfortunate thing, and that is changing. And then kind of, I don't always first say what's the science to something. Everything doesn't have to be science-based. It can be, but started looking at that as well as just, I mean, my stress level is considerable. Practice is busy, raising kids, and many, many activities. And quickly found that, you know, there was both a strong science foundation. It fit with all that I knew about breathing and with mind-body. And I needed it myself, no question. That statement, if you don't have 20 minutes a day to meditate, you got to do it for 60 minutes. I mean, that was certainly my life story. Don't make an excuse for something that's going to enhance the rest of the 23 hours and 40 minutes of the day. So I've enjoyed, you know, my own personal experience with it, and I have found it very, very helpful in
What kind of
teaching
changes have you seen in your own life with the meditating?
Well, you know, it's, I think I mentioned this briefly. I do, in addition to cardiology, I do a lot of testifying. I'm in court all the time. And I think without formal training, I had come to adapt some skills of both breathing and focus and stress reduction, just because sometimes it's pretty wild walking into a court and being the man that they all want to take down. And so I had actually found that when I formally started taking some meditation classes and reading some books and listening to some CDs and YouTubes and the rest, I said, you know, I'm kind of doing that stuff already, and now I have a little more structure to it. I have a little more mantras and some of the mudras, and the rest were clearly things I needed to learn about. But I think it's the ability to, I mean, equanimity. I mean, it's going to take quite a bit for you to see me, you know, come apart. And I breathe my way through it, or I take a few moments of quiet and kind of regroup. And
isn't it amazing to have these technologies? I call them technologies or tools that we can pull out in our daily living. That's the whole reason I'm here teaching yoga, is to give those to people. So when they're feeling that world ocean is too big for them, or you know, the anxiety's coming up, we can do just what you said and shift it.
And you know, I've you mentioned I have a book that's out now, so I've been able, I speak all the time, but I've been speaking a little bit more on some topics that are in my book, one of which is a chapter on the healing effects of meditation. And you know, the science is strong in my field. If you've had a heart attack and you get taught to eat healthy, exercise, don't smoke, and meditate, versus just the other good lessons, you have half the chance of having a second heart attack or dying in 5 years. And this is like real science.
That's like huge.
Huge. If there was a pill called meditation, it'd be, you know, be $1,000 a month, and it would make somebody $1 billion bestseller. But it's important. So I do now pretty routinely refer cardiac patients to various facilities or online sources, or you know, again, it doesn't always take a tremendous lot of teaching, and I believe they're going to benefit from it. And there have been now memory enhancement, brain function improvement, immune function, and there's actually some data now from UCLA that meditation on a regular basis may be anti-aging, actually affect your gene structure, your gene output. I mean, this stuff is wild, and you know, on the list of things that do that, there's very few. There's under a dozen that can really be science-based. And
someone that meditates for 5 years has the physiology of someone 10 years younger, and biology.
I believe that. I believe that. I mean, it's powerful stuff. So the challenge has been bringing into practice. We're actually fairly lucky in this community to have a few examples just in my field of heart disease. Dr. Dan Govian on the east side of the city with a yoga studio, Dr. Chennaiyan, the Beaumont cardiologist that has a mind-body program, my own interest in it. But it's still pretty uncommon, and I'm wonderful that you have the program you do here, and honestly, I'll use it more. And I joke a little bit. Part of it is it's always economics, and they're just, of course, other than people are willing to pay for classes, there's no place in the medical world for teaching mind, body, and having it covered. I call it when the day we have reimbursement, when we can actually, you know, when patients with conditions can actually go and get these covered under, you know, comprehensive health plans. I mean, we need that, because
we do have some of that going on, actually, because one of our teachers, Lynn Meadow, has patients that come in that it is covered by their Blue Cross or something. I'm not quite sure how it's all working out, but we have a few already.
Well, good. And I mean, I look forward to, maybe with the new Accountable Care Act, Affordable Care Act and such, they talk that there'll be much more wellness programming, because it should be available. I mean, stress is the root cause so many medical problems. And
Bottom line.
And
Yeah.
the standard question I ask everybody, how's your stress level? Just a simple question, and boy, there's a few people out there that are pretty happy in a pretty even place. But
How about the people that don't even know how much stress they're under because
Yeah.
it's just their normal way of living?
are you talking to me?
No,
Okay.
not at all. But it's become such a norm for us, we don't even know we're under stress
that's true.
until it symptomatically comes up and manifests into the body, right? Or a heart issue or something.
No question.
So we
think
can,
that's
I love your
everywhere.
statement all the time, prevent, not stent.
Right.
Well, these are the preventing ways.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And you're modeling it for your patients, which is incredible.
I'm trying, and that's been fun. I mean, there's a little challenge there to eat healthy in public and try and live a healthy life as an example. And of course, you do that, and there's many good examples of it. But it's been fun. People are always coming up to me and looking what's on my plate. I feel like Florian
Right.
Mark sometimes, but it's a good thing to be a good role model.
Well, let's get back to that because I know that's a big part, too, of your program.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about just mantras because I think maybe when you came to Karma, you were a little more exposed to mantras, maybe.
Yes. Oh,
and
much more.
Yeah, it's been fun to kind of
Yeah.
turn you on to the mantras.
Right.
And you're mentioning to me now you started playing them in your office.
Yes.
And maybe during some procedures.
Yeah.
Tell me what's been going on with that.
Pandora is always going now in my cath lab in my office, and it's usually Simrit Kaur Station or Girish Station or something. And really, you hooked me onto this stuff. I had a little exposure to Krishna Das, and I'm not sure of much more if you just go back even a year ago. I mean, there was a few that I was listening to regularly. But boy, you've just expanded my mind with all the great
Yay.
live concerts you've had and the classes that I've come to. And as you know, I come up to you and ask you, who's that, who's that, who's that? And my iPod is now totally full of this music. It's pushing out the
Yay.
Stones, and it hasn't got rid of Bruce Springsteen yet. That's a tough one for me, but it's getting rid of a lot of them. But what has been really fun is, I work in East Side, West Side, North Side offices. People are stopping. What is the music? Why, it's so calming. And you're right. In the catheterization lab where I do procedures, put it on in the background, and there is something very energetic and very organic and very healing. And my own enthusiasm is so quickly matched by people around me. It's been really fun to put it out there for people. I mean, it's on in my home all the time now, and I think my dogs are grooving a bit.
I love it.
Yeah, they do. They really do. It's just clearly a universal sound of relaxation and healing. So
There's something so powerful about these mantras. They find you, and the one that you need to work with for a while finds you. And you don't really know why unless you know more about the mantras, because they have specific things that they do. Some release fear, negativity, some can help clear addiction, some can help clear a lot of the subconscious psyche. It's really interesting. So they'll find you, and you can't stop playing that one.
No.
Have you experienced that?
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
all of a sudden, what I experience is I don't seem to want to listen to it as much anymore. It means like some clearing happened, and another one attracts me.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so when I've introduced the community to the mantras and in the studio, people were like, what is that? It's very seductive. It like pulls you in, and they don't even know why. And you're experiencing that in the mainstream, or what I want to say, more general public.
Yeah, it's just absolutely powerful, mind-altering, for a good way, piece of what's happened since I started visiting Karma. So thank you.
Oh, yay. So what are some of the biggest benefits that you can think about? I know we've talked about a lot of them, but what yoga has brought into your life and shifted more than you thought it would. Because I'm sure you didn't see this when you started out in medical school, that you would be going this direction. And we can talk about the diet and the food, and
Right.
of course your books some more that you know.
No, but without doubt, I mean, yoga is medicine. It is a real tool, and obviously in terms of flexibility and such, like many of us, I'm a cardio rat, and put me on a spin bike, put me on a treadmill.
You're still
or a
doing
lift
all
bike,
that too.
and I mix it all
Right.
together. But I was not regularly enjoying and practicing, flexibility exercises. So without question, I've been able to maintain much more flexibility because of the regular yoga practice. It has a powerful effect, as you know, on the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic. Very powerful effect to lower blood pressure. So, fortunately, my blood pressure, the norm is you gain weight every year and your blood pressure goes up, and other parameters of health suffer in this country with our lifestyle and our stress. And I think in my own life, and I certainly know for sure medically sound to say, this is the answer to grab onto, to kind of bring balance back between the parasympathetic and sympathetic. And you know, we were in class the other day doing alternate nose breathing, and that's probably the most powerful balancing breathing technique I know of through yoga that can do that, but just in general focusing on the breath. So you know, all that. It's hard for me to say why I work long hours but maintain lots of energy and can pretty much hold it together, but I give credit to the practice of yoga for a very large portion of that.
Because I know you kind of keep the hours I keep. You're up early like I am.
I'm seeing you posting just as I'm rolling out.
Right. So there's something to this because you get so much more sustainable energy to be able to keep the hours we keep and still feel good and grounded. You know, we're not. You
got to go to bed early once in a while.
I do. I go to bed early.
Okay.
Absolutely. I couldn't be getting up when I get if I don't go to bed early.
4 a.m. wake up calls are usually with a earlier to bed plan also.
Right. So not good for social life, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm more into this. So let's quickly talk, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but let's quickly talk a little bit about your diet and how that's really been a very important part of your program with your patients and you.
It really is. It's a quality yoga diet, at least as I see it, because the journey was I became vegetarian long ago, and using the titles most people use, became a vegan about 15 years ago. That was a yoga studio. I bet somebody in a yoga studio for a week that we couldn't go vegan together. And, and I never saw the person again. That's like one of these little angels that showed up. Person actually moved out of town during that week. I actually think so.
You're on your own.
But I'm still going. And similar to yoga, it was in part the way I felt, energetic and all. It was in part the medical science that was there in my field and now many other fields, cancer field, the weight control field, depression field, that plant strong, plant-based, plant predominant. I call it vegetabiliarian. I mean, I don't really judge people. I'm wearing leather shoes, and I really hope to move beyond that. But when Tony Lama comes out with replacements, I'm there. Anyway, so I am a big advocate, and it is in part, I don't eat dead stuff, or at least I don't eat dead animal stuff, and I really do believe that that brings a bit more, or at least minimizing the amount for those of you that aren't all the way where I am eating at this point, and trying to eat as much raw, living, energy-containing food as there is. I think there's a direct connection to how you feel and how you
bottom line
work through the day. And honestly, I've become more interested in the ethical side of veganism as time went by. It started medical, and it's moved into the environment and ethical, but it just darn feels good to know my carbon footprint and my relationship to animals and all. And I just don't buy it that there's lots of ethical farming out there in the animal world. There's a few small examples, and most of it's just, I mean, we're so far removed from the source in our plate. That, you know, it's not even called meat. I mean, it's a steak. We don't call it what it is. We certainly don't think about how it got there, and it hurts. It's a bad transition we've developed in the last 50, 60 years, the way we produce food. So it's an option that I've found pleasing in every respect. So I my plan, I talk to patients about it. I try to get junk out, plants up, colorful food in.
And I've seen so many lovely things that you post on Facebook of that patients that allow you, gave you permission, that have had huge transformations.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my field that although I use prescription drugs, the easiest, simplest step to get people down on them or potentially off of them is through diet, through motion, through yoga. And frankly, it's a pretty simple, more vegetable, less animal. Boot the junk, and people just, it's like a plant that hasn't had water. They just blossom within a couple weeks. They feel good.
How about the old saying, it's so true, you are what you eat, and you feel like what you eat.
And people, don't think about it. I feel crappy. Well, it's a pretty simple formula that I see going on here. So.
And yoga and meditation is all about helping you to assist that clearing and purifying. So it's kind of a natural byproduct. The longer you're on this practice, you start to not be attracted to the foods that aren't supporting you feeling that clear and that pure. And it just is a natural byproduct. I didn't wake up one day and just said, I'm not eating meat. It just happened to me because I was not feeling the attraction to it. I've lost my taste, the vibration, everything. And that's what happened for me. So, well, show us your books that you brought with us, just so we know, or your book. You got it.
Well, I was going to show real quick.
Yeah.
Because, along the way I mentioned Dr. Ornish, heart disease reversal. We have this really exciting thing going on right now at Beaumont, which is a heart reversal support group. There were people eating in a very strict, regimented way, and they had no friends. Some of these were my patients. I routinely said, it's so hard for me at holidays. I can't eat in restaurants.
Right.
Because it's really a no-oil diet, which is the hard part in restaurants.
Right.
We thought we'd get 10 people to talk about this thing. We have 120, 130 people showing up monthly now and kind of following this. But
Cool.
what I love about this is how much this is a 1996 book, is Mind,
Right.
Body, is Yoga. I love Dr. Khalsa and
Yeah.
this book, 12-minute meditation.
That's a
He
great
works
book.
with UCLA, and I just have found this a good resource to teach some people. But
Yeah,
so
show us your book. This
I've
is
got
great.
that and 76 other kind of holistic health tips on how to prevent and or potentially reverse heart disease. And they go from food to mind, body, to breathing, to stress, to the toxic environment we live in, simple steps, how to clean up your house, your car, dry cleaning, other things, the role of sunshine, the role of walking barefoot on the ground. I haven't lost my mind. Almost everything has a reference that can be related to science. I kind of did this as a professor down at Wayne and wanted a book that I would let anybody read, and they'd say it's a little wacko, but you stuck to science.
Oh, it's great.
And it's fun, the feedback from patients, the ability to pick up 5, 10, 15 tips pretty readily in their shopping list, in their pantry, in their
Right,
refrigerator.
you gotta make it easy.
In their kind of life, their calendar during the day and fitting in. I mean, it's called in here, Vitamin Y, yoga as a vitamin to energize your life, to improve your blood pressure, to lower your cholesterol, to manage your stress, and to anti-age. I think we're on the verge of some really good anti-aging medicine. It's here, but it's going to get really hot, and yoga is going to be right in the center of it. Which is
Totally
exciting.
in the center.
And we're going to enjoy the benefits.
We're in this together. I
Yeah.
love that we're co-creating. I love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on.
That was fun. Thank
It
you.
was so great. Well, again, just thanking Dr. Joel Kahn for joining us. And if you want to learn more about his book, we'll put that on the website, and it's www.karma-yoga.net. Thanks for joining us.